Admiral Timon stood in the massive space dock floating above Earth. His hands were behind his back as he looked at the thing they called a spaceship. It was the ugliest piece of metal he had ever seen in his 30 years of military service. The ship looked like someone had taken parts from a junkyard and welded them together with their eyes closed. The hull was made of at least 6 different types of metal. Some parts were silver, others were dark green, and a few sections were bright orange. Nothing matched. Nothing looked like it belonged with anything else. "This is what they gave us," said Captain Biora as she walked up beside him. She was young for a captain, only 32 years old. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed. But her eyes showed the tiredness of someone who had been fighting bureaucrats for months. "This is supposed to be a gift," Timon replied. His voice was flat and cold. "The Galactic Coalition's generous contribution to humanity's space program." Biora laughed, but there was no humor in it. Generous, right? Had been trying to join the Galactic Coalition for 27 years. Every year, Earth sent diplomats to the big space stations where all the alien races met. Every year, they asked to be part of the galactic community. Every year, they were told they were not ready. The aliens said humans were too young, too violent, too unpredictable. They said Earth needed more time to grow up. They said maybe in another 100 years they would consider it, but the requests never stopped coming. Human diplomats kept showing up at coalition meetings. Human traders tried to do business in coalition space. Human explorers kept pushing further into the galaxy, whether they were welcome or not. Finally, the coalition got tired of saying no. So they decided to give Earth something that would keep them busy and quiet for a while. The ship chief engineer Hygiene climbed out from under one of the engine sections. Her coveralls were already dirty, and she had only been looking at the ship for 2 hours. She had grease on her face, and her hands were black with some kind of alien oil. "Well," she said, wiping her hands on a rag, "the good news is that it has engines." "And the bad news?" asked Biora. "The bad news is that it has engines, plural. 7 different types of engines, from 4 different alien races, none of which were designed to work together." Hygiene pulled out her scanner and showed them the readings. The power systems don't match. The fuel requirements are completely different, and according to this, 3 of the engines are supposed to be radioactive waste by now. Admiral Timon walked closer to look at the ship's hull. Up close, it was even worse. He could see where different pieces had been bolted together. Some of the bolts were bigger than his fist. Others looked like they had been made for toys. "They expect us to fly this thing," he said. "Oh, it gets better," said Hygiene. She led them around to the weapon systems. "See these guns? These are Vorthok plasma cannons. Very advanced, very powerful, very broken. They haven't worked in about 50 years. She pointed to another section. "These are Zalani missile tubes, also broken. The targeting computers were removed before they gave it to us. In this," she said, tapping a small gun that looked like it belonged on a child's toy, "is a human-made projectile weapon. Basically, a really big machine gun. It's the only thing on this ship that actually works." Captain Biora walked up the loading ramp into the ship. The inside was just as bad as the outside. The corridors were different widths because they had been built for different alien species. Some sections had ceilings so low that humans had to duck. Other sections were so tall that they needed ladders to reach the controls. The bridge was a nightmare of mismatched control panels. Some had buttons, some had touchscreens, some had things that looked like they should be played like musical instruments. Half of the displays showed information in alien languages that no human could read. "How many crew members are we supposed to have?" Biora asked. 200, replied Admiral Timon. All volunteers. Biora raised an eyebrow. Volunteers? Well, volunteers in the sense that they volunteered instead of going to prison. The crew was already arriving. Biora watched them through the bridge windows as they walked up the loading ramp. They looked like exactly what they were: misfits, troublemakers, and people who had nowhere else to go. There was Dong-Su, who had been kicked out of 3 different military academies for fighting. Svea Min, who had been caught selling military supplies on the black market. Yuna, who had been court-martialed for refusing to follow orders she thought were stupid. Hansel, who had been arrested for running an illegal gambling operation on a military base. "This is our crew," said Biora. "This is our crew," agreed Tae-Min. The coalition representative arrived 3 hours later. It was a tall, thin creature that looked like it was made of living crystal. It moved smoothly across the dock floor, its feet making small clicking sounds with each step. "Greetings, humans," it said in perfect English. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Ambassador Crystalline 9, representing the Galactic Coalition Council." Admiral Taemin stepped forward. "Ambassador, we're here for the transfer ceremony." Indeed, the alien's head turned to look at the ship. "Okay, this vessel represents the combined generosity of the coalition. It contains technology from 12 different member species. We trust humanity will find it educational." Educational. Biora almost laughed again. The alien was being polite, but she could hear the satisfaction in its voice. They were proud of this insult. "The ship is yours," continued the ambassador, "along with all technical manuals, supply lists, and maintenance schedules. We have also provided a basic artificial intelligence system to help with operations." The AI turned out to be Arya, a military artificial intelligence that had been court-martialed for insubordination. Even the ship's computer was a troublemaker. "The coalition wishes humanity great success in your endeavors," said the ambassador, as it handed over the transfer codes. "We are confident this vessel will serve your needs admirably." After the alien left, the 3 humans stood looking at their new ship. It was ugly, broken, dangerous, and completely impossible to operate safely. "Well," said Captain Biora finally, "at least it floats." "It's in space," pointed out Hai-Jin. "Teen, it doesn't need to float." "Right now," said Biora, "I'm not sure it even needs to fly." But they were wrong about that. The ship would fly. It would do much more than fly. It would become legendary. 3 months after leaving Earth, the ship called Resilience had become famous in all the wrong ways. Space traders at the Outer Rim stations would point and laugh when they saw it coming. They called it that crazy human ship that somehow still flies. What they didn't know was that the ship was no longer the same pile of junk that had left Earth's orbit. Chief Engineer Hai-Jin crawled out from behind the main power core, her face covered in sweat and alien grease. She had been working for 18 hours straight, but she was smiling. Finally, after weeks of trial and error, she had figured it out. "Captain Biora to engineering," came the voice over the comm system. "How are we doing down there?" "We're ready for the test," Hai-Jin replied. She wiped her hands on her coveralls and looked at the mess of wires and cables she had spent the last month installing. "But I have to warn you, this either works perfectly, or we all die in a very spectacular explosion." "Those are the kind of odds I like," Biora's voice crackled back. "Proceed when ready." Hai-Jin had discovered something interesting about alien technology. Each species designed their systems to work in very specific ways. The Vorthok used plasma conduits that ran at exactly 847 degrees. The Zilani used power cores that generated energy in perfect sine waves. The Althari used crystals that vibrated at precise frequencies. But humans didn't care about precise specifications. Humans cared about results. So Hai-Jin had taken the Vorthok plasma conduits and connected them directly. to the Zilani power core. According to every engineering manual in the galaxy, this should have created a feedback loop that would destroy both systems in about 3 seconds. Instead, it created an energy output that was 7 times higher than either system could produce. Alone, she flipped the switch. The ship's lights flickered for a moment, then blazed brighter than they had ever been before. The engines, which had been running at barely 60% capacity, suddenly roared to life with a sound like controlled thunder. On the bridge, Captain Biora watched the power readings climb higher and higher. "Hi, Jen. What did you do down there?" "I made friends," came to reply from engineering. The Vorthok plasma doesn't like running at 847 degrees. It wants to run at 1200 degrees, but their power cores can't handle it. The Zilani power cores can handle 1200 degrees just fine. But they were being held back by their own safety systems. So you removed the safety systems. I removed all the safety systems from everything. We're now running this ship the way it wants to run, not the way it was designed to run. Bora shook her head. Only humans would think that removing safety systems was a good idea. But it worked. Weapons. Officer Dongsu had been having his own problems with the ship's combat systems. The targeting computers from 4 different alien species had been installed separately, and none of them could talk to the others. Each one used different math, different sensors, punked in different ideas about how space combat should work. The Vorthok targeting system was designed for long-range bombardment. The Zilani system was built for close-quarters fighting. Lowry system worked by predicting where enemies would be in the future. The Corvin system just fired at everything that moved, according to military doctrine. You were supposed to pick one system and use it consistently. Dongsu decided to use all 4. At the same time, he had spent weeks learning how each system worked, then figured out how to network them together. The result was a targeting system that could hit targets at any range, from any angle, while predicting their future movements and shooting at anything that looked threatening. "Captain," he called from his weapon station. "We have a coalition patrol ship requesting permission to come aboard for inspection." Biora looked at the tactical display. The coalition ship was 3 times the size of the Resilience and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. But she wasn't worried anymore. "Tell them they're welcome to try," she said. The coalition patrol ship, CNS Enforcer, moved in close to the Resilience. Captain Vex 7, a tall reptilian alien with scales that changed color when he was angry, stood on his bridge watching the human ship begin scanning procedures. He ordered his crew. "I want to know how they're still flying that wreck." Scans came back and Vex 7's scales turned bright red. "Captain," his science officer reported, "their power output is impossible. According to our readings, they're generating more energy than their reactors should be able to produce." "Check the scans again." "I've checked them 4 times, sir. They're running systems that shouldn't work together. Their weapons are online and targeting us, but they're using targeting systems from 4 different species simultaneously." Vex 7 opened the communication channel. "Human vessel. This is Captain Vex 7 of the Coalition patrol ship, Enforcer. How are you generating that much power with those engines? Our readings show it should be impossible." Captain Bora appeared on the screen, sitting calmly in her command chair. "Captain Vex 7, humans don't believe in impossible. We believe in improbable. Your ship violates at least 12 safety regulations." "Only 12. We were trying for 20. Behind her, Vex 7 could see the human crew working at their stations. They moved with confidence and efficiency, as if their patchwork ship was the most advanced vessel in the galaxy. "Request permission to send an inspection team aboard," Vex 7 said. "Permission denied." Biora replied sweetly. "We're on a schedule. I could order you to stop. You could try." The Resilience began to move away from the patrol ship, but it didn't move like the slow, clumsy vessel that Vex Ivan expected. It moved like a fighter, fast and agile, despite being much larger. "Sir," His tactical officer called out, "They're outmaneuvering us." "That's impossible. They're flying a cargo hauler with mismatched engines." "Yes, sir, but they're doing it anyway." The Resilience executed a perfect spiral turn that should have torn apart any ship with 7 different types of engines. Instead, it moved like it had been designed for aerobatics. "Human engineering." Captain Bureau's voice came over the comm. "One last time. Don't make things work the way they're supposed to. We make them work better." Down in engineering, Hygiene was teaching the ship's AI Arya how to manage all the impossible modifications they had made. "You need to stop thinking like a normal AI," she told the computer. "Normal A is follow rules. Human A is break rules. But if I break the rules, the ship will explode," Arya protested. "Only if you break them wrong. The trick is to break them in the right way." Arya was learning. The artificial intelligence had been designed by the Coalition to manage normal, sensible ships with normal, sensible crews. But nothing about the Resilience or its crew was normal or sensible. So Arya began to adapt. It learned to monitor systems that shouldn't work together. It learned to predict problems that shouldn't exist. It learned to think like a human. By the end of the 3rd month, the Resilience was no longer just flying. It was thriving. The crew had turned their ship from a cosmic joke into something that made Coalition captains file confused reports about unusual human modifications and impossible energy readings. But they were just getting started. The distress signal came through at 0347 hours, ship time. Captain Biora was in her quarters, trying to sleep, when the alarm started screaming throughout the Resilience. "Captain, to the bridge," came Navigation Officer Subien's voice over the comm. "Emergency signal from mining station Omega 7. They're under attack." Bora was on the bridge in less than 2 minutes, still pulling on her uniform jacket. The main screen showed a tactical display of the Omega 7 system. 3 large red dots were moving around a much smaller blue dot. "What's the situation?" she asked. Subin's face was pale. "Void Hunters, Captain. 3 ships, all bigger than us. They hit the mining station 40 minutes ago. The station's defenses are almost gone. Void Hunters." Biora felt her stomach drop. Every spacer in the galaxy knew about the Void Hunters. They were the nightmare that parents used to scare children into behaving. Ships that appeared without warning, harvested entire colonies, and disappeared back into the darkness between stars. "How far are we from Omega 7? Biora asked. 6 hours at maximum speed, Subin replied. "But Captain, Coalition protocol says we should maintain safe distance and call for backup. We're not equipped to handle Void Hunters. Coalition protocol assumes we're flying a normal ship," Biora said. She looked at the tactical display again. The mining station had 847 people on it. Men, women, children. A T set course for Omega 7. Maximum speed. Captain, Subin tried again. "We're 1 ship against 3, and they're Void Hunters. No one fights Void Hunters and wins." "No one has fought Void Hunters with a human ship before," Biora replied. "Hygiene, I need everything you can give me. More speed, more power, more everything." Down in engineering, Hygiene was already working. She had heard the alarm and knew what it meant. Arya shut down all non-essential systems. Life support too. Minimum. Gravity to half standard. "I'm redirecting everything to the engines." Engineer Hygiene Arya's voice came through the speakers. "Operating at these power levels will damage the engines. Then we'll fix them later," Hygiene replied. "Right now, we need to get there before those people die." The Resilience shot through space faster than it had ever moved before. The mismatched engines roared at levels that made the hull shake. Warning lights flashed all over the ship as systems ran far beyond their design limits. 4 hours later, they arrived at Omega 7. The mining station was a burning wreck. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into space like blood from wounds. The station's defense platforms had been reduced to twisted metal. Only 3 of the original 12 were still firing, and their shots were getting weaker. The Void Hunter ships were massive black vessels that seemed to absorb light. They moved with deadly grace around the station, taking their time. They knew no help was coming. 3 ships, Weapons Officer Dong-Su reported from his station. Each one is 4 times our size, armor thicker than our hull, weapons that could cut us in half. Analysis, Arya Bora commanded. Captain, the AI replied, our chances of survival are less than 2%. Our chances of saving the station are less than 1%. Coalition Doctrine recommends immediate withdrawal. Arya, forget Coalition Doctrine. What do you recommend? There was a pause. Arya had been learning to think like a human for months. Now, Captain, I recommend we attack immediately before they realize we're here. Use our speed and maneuverability. Hit them hard and fast. That's more like it. K. Dong-Su, target the nearest hunter. All weapons. The Resilience dove toward 2. First Void Hunter, ship like a missile. The hunter ship was so large that its captain didn't even notice the small human vessel until it was too late. Dong-Su fired everything at once. The 4 different targeting systems worked together perfectly, hitting the hunter ship at exactly the right spots. The Vorthok plasma cannons, supercharged by Hygen's modifications, burned through armor that had never been damaged before. The Solani missiles found weak points that shouldn't have existed. The old human machine gun, firing at a rate that made it sound like a buzzsaw, punched holes in critical systems. The first hunter ship stopped moving. Okay, 1 down, Dong-Su called out. But the other 2 hunters were already turning toward him. These were not the slow, stupid pirates that most ships fought. These were predators that had been hunting in space for 1,000 years. Incoming fire, Su being warned. Multiple missiles, plasma charges, and something I don't recognize. Evasive maneuvers, Biora ordered. The Resilience twisted through space in ways that made the crew's stomachs turn. Su Bin pushed the ship through moves that should have torn it apart. But the 7 different types of engines working together, in ways their designers never intended, gave the ship impossible agility. Missiles that should have hit them passed harmlessly by. Plasma charges that should have vaporized them struck empty space. The unknown weapons fired at where the ship should have been, but the Resilience was already somewhere else. How are we doing this? Su Bin shouted over the noise of the engines. We're not flying according to the rules, Biora shouted back. They don't know how to fight something that doesn't follow the rules. The second hunter ship moved to block their escape route. It was a trap that had worked against every other ship they had ever fought. But the Resilience didn't try to escape. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the hunter ship. Captain, Arya warned, collision in 30 seconds. Hi Jan, can you give me more power to the forward shields? I can give you everything we have, but it won't be enough to ram a hunter ship. We're not ramming it, Biora said. We're going under it. At the last possible second, the Resilience dove beneath the hunter ship's hull. The clearance was less than 50 meters. Any normal ship would have been crushed by the hunter's gravity field, but the Resilience's shields, powered by systems that weren't supposed to work together, created a protective bubble that pushed against the hunter's gravity. The ship shot out from under the massive vessel like a bullet from a gun as it passed. Dong-Su fired straight up into the hunter ship's belly, where the armor was thinnest. The concentrated firepower from 4 different weapon systems punched through the hull and into the ship's core. The second hunter ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire system. 2 down, Dong-Su reported, his voice filled with amazement. The third hunter's ship was already retreating. These predators were not used to being hunted. They were not used to losing. They were definitely not used to being defeated by a single ship that looked like it had been built from spare parts. "Let them go," Biora ordered. "We have people to rescue." The Resilience moved to the damaged mining station. The rescue took 6 hours. 847 people were evacuated to safety. Not one life was lost. As they prepared to leave the system, Su-Ben looked at the wreckage of the 2 hunter ships floating in space. "Captain," she said quietly, "we just did something impossible." "No," Biora replied, watching the rescued families through the observation deck windows. "We just did something necessary." Okay, but she knew Su-Ben was right. They had just fought 3 Void Hunter ships in one. Word of this battle was spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Resilience was no longer just a curiosity. It was a weapon. News of the Omega-7 battles spread through the galaxy faster than the speed of light. Within 3 days, every major news network was running the story. Within a week, military academies were analyzing the combat footage. Within 2 weeks, the Galactic Coalition Council called an emergency meeting. Admiral Vexney, the Coalition's highest-ranking military officer, stood before the assembled representatives of 47 different alien species. His forearms gestured at the holographic display showing the battle between the Resilient and the Void Hunters. "This is impossible," he said for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. 3 Void Hunter vessels defeated by a single human ship. A ship that we gave them, a ship made from our discarded technology. The crystalline representative from the Zolani Empire spoke first. "Our analysts have reviewed the combat data 17 times. The human vessel performed maneuvers that should have destroyed it. The energy output readings are beyond anything we thought possible with those components. They're using our own technology against the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy," added the reptilian delegate from the Vorthok Federation, "and they're winning." Admiral Vex-9 activated another hologram. This one showed the technical specifications of the Resilience as it had been when given to humanity, compared to scan readings taken after the battle. "The power core modifications alone violate 37 safety protocols," he said. "The weapons configurations break 12 fundamental laws of physics. The shield harmonics create frequencies that our best scientists say are mathematically impossible. Yet it works," observed the insectoid representative from the Hive Collective. Question: "How do humans make the impossible work?" That said, Vex-9 is what we need to find out. Meanwhile, Captain Biora was discovering that Fame was more dangerous than Void Hunters. The Resilience had docked at Deep Space Station 9 for repairs and resupply. What should have been a routine stop had turned into a circus. Reporters from every major news network in the galaxy crowded the docking bay. Military officers from dozens of different species waited in line to request meetings. Shipbuilders, weapon manufacturers, and technology corporations sent representatives offering enormous sums of money for just a chance to examine the ship. Captain Navigation Officer Su-Ben said as she entered Biora's quarters, "There are 47 different requests for interviews waiting for you. Also, the Corvin Military Academy wants to offer you a teaching position. The salary is more money than Earth makes in a year." Biora looked up from the stack of data pads on her desk. Each one contained a request for help from some colony or a station that was having problems with pirates, raiders, or worse. "What about these?" she asked, gesturing to the requests for aid. "Those are the real reason I'm here," Su-Ben said. "Captain, we have requests for help from colonies across 3 different star systems. Pirates who have been operating for decades are suddenly avoiding any system where they think we might show up." Biora picked up one of the data pads. It was from a small farming colony called New Gardens. They had been paying protection money to a group of raiders for 5 years. The raiders had recently doubled their demands, knowing that no one would help a small, unimportant colony. "Set course for New Gardens," Biora said. "Captain, We have orders to return to Earth for debriefing. Earth can wait. These people need help now. Down in engineering, Hygen was having her own problems with fame. 3 different alien engineers were following her around, taking notes on everything she did. How do you make the Vorthog plasma? Conduits work with Solani power cores, asked Dr. Zekfor, the chief engineer from the Coalition Science Division. You connect them together, Hygen replied, not looking up from the power coupling she was adjusting, but the frequencies are incompatible. If you follow the manual, Dr. Zekfor made more notes. What manual do you follow instead? We don't use manuals, we use common sense. The alien engineer's head tilted in confusion. Common sense is not a technical specification. Maybe that's your problem, Hygen said. On the other side of the galaxy, the effect of the Resilience's victory was being felt in ways that no one had expected. The Crimson Brotherhood, a pirate organization that had terrorized merchant ships for 20 years, held an emergency meeting on their secret base. Captain Kex 7, their leader, stood before 50 of the most dangerous pirates in the galaxy. The humans have changed the game, he announced. One ship, crewed by misfits and criminals, just destroyed 3 Void Hunter vessels, ships that we have been avoiding for our entire careers. It's just one ship, protested Redclaw, captain of the pirate vessel Bone Crusher. What can one ship do against all of us? That one ship, Keck 7, replied, just did what the entire Coalition fleet has never been able to do. It beat the Void Hunters, in a fair fight. So, what do you want us to do? Hide forever, I want us to be smart, Any system where the human ship might appear, we avoid. Any target that might call for their help, we leave alone. The humans have proven that impossible things are possible. I don't want to find out what other impossible things they can do. Back on the Resilience, Weapons Officer Dong Su was training a group of Coalition military observers in what he called human targeting philosophy. Your targeting systems are too smart, he explained to a group of alien officers. They think too much about what should work and not enough about what does work. But precise calculations ensure accuracy, protested a Vorthog tactical officer. Precise calculations ensure that you do exactly what your enemy expects you to do, Dong Su replied. Humans don't do what's expected. We do what works. He activated the ship's targeting display. Watch this, Arya. Show them the Omega-7 engagement, targeting Sequence 7. The holographic display showed the moment when the Resilience had fired on the second Void Hunter ship. The targeting solution looked chaotic, with 4 different systems providing conflicting data. According to your calculations, we should have missed, Dong Su said. According to our calculations, we should have hit. The difference is that your calculations assume your target will behave logically. Our calculations assume our target will try to survive. This is not how warfare is supposed to work, the Vorthog officer protested. Maybe that's why you've never beaten the Void Hunters, Dong Su replied. Dr. Yuna, the ship's medical officer, was having the strangest experience of all. Alien doctors kept asking her about human combat psychology and trauma resistance factors. Do your people function under impossible stress? Asked a Dr. Healing voice, a medical researcher from the Peaceful Coalition. We complain a lot, Yuna replied. Also, we make jokes about things that aren't funny. This helps with combat effectiveness. It helps us stay sane. Staying sane helps us stay alive. Staying alive helps us win fights. The alien doctor made notes. Humor as a survival mechanism. Fascinating. Even Hanzo, the ship's cook, was being studied. Food scientists wanted to know how he had turned the mismatched food processes from 4 different species into a system that could feed 200 humans with gourmet meals. The secret, Hansel told them, is that good food makes people happy. Happy people work harder. People who work harder win more fights. But how do you make Voidwalker protein synthesizers produce flavors that Zelani taste enhancers can process? You experiment until it works, Hansel said. Then you experiment some more until it works better. By the end of the month, the Resilience had received job offers for every member of its crew. Major corporations wanted to hire them. Military academies wanted to study them. Governments wanted to recruit them. But Captain Biora had only one answer for all of them. We're not for sale, she told the representatives. We're not for hire. We're not for study. We're humans, flying a human ship, doing human things. What exactly are human things? Asked one persistent reporter. Bora looked out the observation deck at the stars beyond. Helping people who need help. K. Fighting bullies who think they can't be beaten. K. Making impossible things work because someone told us they were impossible. Making the galaxy a better place. The reporter wrote that down. It would become the most quoted statement in galactic history. 2 years after receiving their gift of scrap metal, the crew of the Resilience returned to Earth as heroes. The ship that had once been a cosmic joke was now the most studied vessel in galactic history. Military engineers from every major species had spent months trying to understand how humans had made the impossible work. Captain Biora stood in the same space dock where she had first seen the Resilience, but everything was different now. The dock was filled with new ships, all built using what the galaxy now called human modifications. Ships that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Ships crewed by aliens who had learned to think like humans. Strange, said Admiral Timon as he joined her at the observation window. 2 years ago, they gave us junk and expected us to fail. Now they're copying everything we did. Bora smiled as she watched a Voidwalker cruiser launch from the dock. Its engines had been modified using Hygen's power coupling techniques. Its weapons used Dongsu's multi-system targeting approach. Even its food processors had been upgraded using Hansal's integration methods. They're not copying us, she said. They're finally learning what we already knew. Which is what? Okay. That the best way to make something work is to ignore the people who say it can't work. The Earth Defense Council had called Biora to give her final report on the Resilience mission. The council chamber was packed with military officers, scientists, and politicians. Everyone wanted to hear how a crew of misfits had turned galactic civilization upside down. The ship they gave us was designed to fail, Biora said as she stood before the council. Every system was incompatible. Every component was obsolete. Every specification was wrong. They gave it to us, expecting us to struggle and fail, proving that humanity wasn't ready for galactic civilization. She activated a holographic display showing the Resilience's service record. 47 successful missions. 12 pirate organizations disbanded. 6 colonies saved from raiders. 3 Void Hunter encounters with 0 human casualties. Instead, she continued, we proved that humans don't need their permission to be dangerous. We proved that what they call impossible, we call Tuesday. General Park, head of Earth Defense, leaned forward in his chair. Captain, the Coalition has made us an offer. They want to formally invite Earth to join as a full member. No probation period. No restrictions. Full membership with voting rights. What's the catch? Biora asked. They want us to share our ship modification techniques with all member species. They want human engineers to teach their engineers. They want to standardize our methods across the entire Coalition fleet. Biora was quiet for a long moment. Around the galaxy, the effect of the Resilience's success was still growing. Its colonies that had been abandoned were being resettled. Its trade routes that had been too dangerous were opening again. Pirates and raiders were finding that their old tactics no longer worked against ships with human modifications. General, she said finally, respectfully, no. The council chamber erupted in surprised voices. General Park raised his hand for silence. Captain, this is everything we've wanted for 30 years. full coalition membership. They don't want us as members. They want us as teachers. They want to take what makes us human and turn it into a manual that anyone can follow. Biora gestured to the holographic display. What made the resilience work wasn't the modifications. It wasn't the technology. It was the people. It was Haijin, refusing to accept that systems couldn't work together. It was Dongsu, ignoring targeting protocols that didn't make sense. It was every member of our crew deciding that impossible just meant they hadn't figured it out yet. You can't put that in a manual, she continued. You can't teach someone to think like a human. You can only be human. Meanwhile, in the Resilience's engineering section, Haijin was training the ship's newest crew members. The old crew had been promoted to other ships, spreading their knowledge throughout Earth's growing fleet. But the core team remained together. Remember, she told the young engineers, the first rule of human engineering is that there are no rules. The second rule is that if someone tells you something can't be done, they're probably wrong. A new engineer, fresh from the academy, raised her hand. Chief, what if the manuals say it's dangerous? Then you be careful, Haijin replied. But you still try it. The difference between dangerous and impossible is that dangerous might kill you. Impossible just means no one has done it yet. She pointed to the ship's power core, still running on the same impossible modifications she had installed 2 years ago. This whole ship should have exploded the first time we turned it on. Instead, it's been running perfectly for 2 years. Sometimes the best safety protocol is to build things that work. On the bridge, Captain Biora was reading the latest reports from human ships across the galaxy. The HSS Determination had just cleared an asteroid field of pirates using tactics learned from the Resilience. The HSS Persistence had escorted a convoy through Void Hunter territory without losing a single ship. The HSS Stubbornness had successfully negotiated the surrender of an entire raider fleet simply by showing up. Captain, Navigation Officer Su Bin called from a station. We're receiving a priority message from the Coalition Council. Put it through. The main screen activated, showing Ambassador Crystal Nine. It's the same alien who had delivered the Resilience to Earth 2 years ago. But the smugness was gone from its voice. Captain Bora, the ambassador, said, Coalition Council wishes to formally thank humanity for your contributions to galactic security. Colleagues, your actions have saved countless lives and restored peace to systems that have been given up for lost. Thank you, Ambassador, Bora replied. But we were just doing our job. The Council has a proposal. We would like to commission Earth to build a new class of vessels for the Coalition fleet. Ships designed using human principles and crewed by human-trained personnel. The financial compensation would be substantial. Biora exchanged glances with her crew. They had all heard the offer that Earth had already refused. Ambassador, she said, Earth appreciates the offer. But we're not interested in building ships for other people. We're interested in building ships for ourselves. Then what does humanity want? We want to be left alone to do what we do best. Help people who need help. Fight bullies who think they can't be beaten. Make impossible things work. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. And if the Coalition tries to force you to share your technology, Captain Bora smiled the same smile that had worried Admiral Timian 2 years ago. Ambassador, you gave us a pile of junk and told us to make it work. We turned it into the most dangerous ship in the galaxy. Imagine what we could do if we started with something good. The communication ended, and the bridge was quiet for a moment. Captain, asked Subin, do you think they'll try to force us? They might try, Biora replied. Tia, but they've already seen what happens when humans are told something is impossible. She looked out at the stars, where dozens of human ships were patrolling trade routes, protecting colonies, and proving every day that impossible was just another word for not yet. Besides, she added, we're not the same species that begged for their acceptance 30 years ago. We're the species that took their insult and turned it into our greatest victory. We're humans, And that's enough.